The thrust load test of a pump is the most accurate way to measure the axial forces inside the pump. For this thrust load test, a magnetic-driven centrifugal pump with a discharge size of 40 mm and an impeller diameter of 320 mm is used. For the test, the following parts are needed: the tested pump, suction piping including a connection to the measuring system, measuring device for force, load, and distance, and 2 visual displays for the load and the distance. Before starting the test, the clearance between the axial bearings and the mounted sleeve bearing must be determined. The pump shaft, which is connected to the measuring device for the loaded distance, can be moved with an adjusting wheel. By doing this, the points of contact of the bearings can be determined. Now we can see the adjustment of the point of contact of the bearing directed to the suction side. By pulling the shaft in the opposite direction, the point of contact of the axial bearing directed to the rotor can be determined. The distance between these 2 points of contact is called the axial clearance of the pump. The measured distance for the axial clearance is noted as Smax in the thrust load report. Now the pump shaft is moved into a position without contact between the axial bearing surfaces. Now the pump can be switched on and the thrust load test can begin. For finding the neutral position of the impeller, the pump shaft is moved into the position where the thrust load is 0. The shown distance S is written in the thrust load report. Now the pump shaft is moved close to the point of contact of the axial bearing directed to the suction side. The measured load is filled in the thrust load report. Repeating this procedure by moving the pump shaft close to the point of contact of the axial bearing directed to the rotor side will show the opposite thrust load. The measured value is also filled into the thrust load report. This procedure will be repeated for the whole range of the performance curve. As a result, you can recognize the distribution of the thrust load which is shown in this diagram. The graph for the gap S if thrust load F equals 0 proves that the axial bearing over the whole performance curve is contact free.